Hello fellow producers, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a sidechain trigger track for your EDM tracks or whatever type of music you like to produce. What a sidechain does is it sends a signal to certain elements of your track and takes away the volume which the side chain is actually triggering. You know, whatever notes you set it to. It's a 4 to the floor kick style side chain, which I've got up here in green. So let's get straight to it. First thing you want to do is add in a new software instrument track by clicking new tracks up here. Add a new software instrument, rename it trigger or sidechain trigger, whatever you like, whatever you'll use to remember what it is. You want to create a region here. I've just made mine 4 bars for this purpose, and once you've made that region, go into your piano roll and pencil in a 16th note on every beat and offbeat, downbeat and offbeat. Keep the notes relatively short. You can have them shorter than this but no longer. I'll show you why in a minute. So you've got that made. Next thing you want to do is make sure you've got a software instrument or audio track playing this like sidechain, you know. So if it's a MIDI track, you'll have this put in your MIDI regions signaled. You could use a kick, or you could use like a soft synth or anything that gives off a noise. We basically just need a signal in this track here to create the trigger. I like to keep it a kick, just in terms of the attack, sustain, decay and release. You know, the way it ramps down emulates the way a kick will sound. So just keep it a kick and keep it short, you know. Right, so we've done that. The next thing you want to do is make the output of your sidechain track to a bus, whether it be bus 1 or bus 10. I like to keep mine on bus 1 just because it's the first bus that pops up when you open up your compressor. So assign a bus that you'll always rename your sidechain. I've actually renamed the bus as well, as you can see here. So sidechain trigger, as I know that's what I'm trying to make here. So I've got it set to bus 1, and when you open your new bus 1, it'll come up here on the side next to your channel. Your bus 1 channel strip will show up, or you can open it up in your mixer. And what we need to do on this channel strip now, your bus 1 sidechain, is you need to set the output to no output, as I'll show you why later. It needs to be no output because all we want is the signal playing, like that signal, the MIDI signal playing. With no audio at all. And as I say, you could have this in audio form as well. You know, you wouldn't have MIDI regions here, you'd have an audio, but you'd set it up the same bus 1 or whatever bus, then no output. And so when you solo it, you can see the signal coming up and down on the channel, but you hear no audio, which is perfect. That's what you need. That's the first thing you need to do. So now that's set up, that'll be set up for your tracks. And this, I'll show you 5 different ways to use it on 5 different elements in your track that it could be used on, and this is the ones that I use it on. I also use it on more in creative ways, which I'll go over when I get to these vocals. So I've got 4 to the floor because I want my kick to be shining through as the trigger happens, and I'll explain in a second why. So I'll start with this pad, right? We've got a pad here just playing a few notes in C, whatever it may be you're trying to use. So I'll play it without the trigger and then with, and see if you could hear the difference. And as that's quite a dramatic effect, what's happened here. I'll go into how I've done this first and explain why I've set up the track as it is. Right, okay. So what you want to do first of all is insert a compressor to your channel strip, whatever channel strip you're needing a sidechain trigger on, which is usually the bass. But you could also use it on pads or strings or that for that type of effect, the pulsing effect. I've just got an EQ on here just because it's basically second nature now after making tracks. I'm kind of just do that without even thinking. But anyway, I'll just open it up, create a new compressor here, just so you guys can follow along. So you've got your sidechain trigger set up, you've got your MIDI region or audio set up. As you can see in the top right of your compressor here, you've got a sidechain option, and you can see it drops down audio or buses or inputs, and you know that previously we've set our sidechain to bus 1, so we need to choose bus 1. And for those that don't have this option, when I first loaded up Logic, mine was basic mode and I didn't have this option, which was quite annoying. So just a little tip here. What you want to do is go Logic Pro X, Preferences and Advanced Tools. And you'll see here I've got Show Advanced Tools. You need to check this for sidechain option to be available. So if it's unchecked, that's what it will look like. You won't see your sidechain option, which is really annoying, you know. So make sure you've got this enabled, and then that'll come back. So keep that enabled, and that's just a little tip to make sure you guys have got the advanced options open. Right. So what's basically going on here is this trigger track has got MIDI, a signal basically, whether it's audio or MIDI. It's getting sent to this compressor, and this compressor it takes away the volume on this channel from the bus 1 signal, you know. So as the signal passes into this compressor from the trigger track, that signal will decrease the volume for however long this region is, you know. So you'll see on the meter here the decrease in decibels for the floor style, because that's the pattern we've got. And that creates a pulsing effect, and it's really, really effective, you know. So that's the reason why you do it, is to create this pulsing effect in many different ways, whether it be a pad, a bass, on your percussion, on your vocals. You don't do it so much on the lead because, well, depends how your leads are set up, but sometimes, usually, you want the lead to be up front and in your face. Plus, the initial reason why you would use, like the main reason why you would use your sidechain is because your kick and bass operate at the same low frequency, which I'll go over when I come to the basses. Right, so I'll just go over a few parameters here within the compressor itself, and how different ones affect how the compressor and the sidechain trigger reacts. So whenever this sidechain nodes are playing the piano notes, this compressor will suck away the volume from the channel here, from your MIDI region here or audio. So whenever that plays, that volume of this gets sucked out by the number of decibels shown on the meter, and that's to allow room for the kick to come in to play, so it hits harder and creates a movement within the track. Right, so enough talking. I'll play about with a few things and see if you can hear the differences. What I like to think the ratio does is, you can imagine a roller coaster going up and then going down. The lower the ratio, the smaller of imagine like hill you're going up, and then the higher the ratio, the steeper you're going up, and the more quickly you're coming down. You know, so this is shown by if you go to the graph here, it'll show you this white bar here. Well, this white pulsing. You see, it's getting shorter, which means less volume's getting sucked away. So that in combination with your threshold creates a drastic effect it will have on the sidechain effect of what you're using it on. So this pad, I'm not wanting it to be brutally in and out fast. I want it to be subtle on the pad because I want it to, like, you can imagine, breathe. I don't want it to be like really up down fast because it would sound weird. I want it to be like flowing, like progressive house tracks. You just imagine the flow of it. So here we go. Another little tip: if you see your y-axis, if you see your compressor coming over this threshold, when you do the dB reduction or increase, if it comes over your y-axis here, it'll create distortion. Sometimes this is good, but I usually try and keep this almost where the X and Y cross. But if you have it a wee bit above, that's fine. Just a little tip. The attack and release parameters, they act as when the compressor comes in. So once that sidechain hits, it'll take the volume 10 milliseconds. It'll take 10 milliseconds for the compressor to take the volume away from this. So this is useful if you're using sidechaining on a bass with a attack transient. So you won't diminish the transient of the bass. You'll miss the transient, the initial transient, and 10 milliseconds later, that's when the kick will. Well, that's when the volume will decrease in the bass. So you'll still have that transient shine through, and then release is basically imagine the roller coaster again. When you're up as far as you could go, how slow or fast you come down. So on a pad, you want it to be like kind of like a slow release. Another thing that I like to notice is, like, for every time the sidechain kick hits or trigger hits, you want it to be at 0 before the next one hits. So it's having a chance to get back down to 0. So you could adjust your release to create this. This gives it the ultimate pumping effect and gives it time to recover. You see, it's not recovering quick enough, so I need to reduce the release time. Yeah, so that has a good flow. That sounds quite good. We're not babbled on too much. The threshold and ratio make it more drastic or subtle. I like to keep my ratio for basses and stuff in between -15, -20, and ratio of 5 to 7. And then adjust your makeup gain to suit and make sure it's kind of near the Y and X axis. Right, so we've got that. That's a pad. You've got it going up and down gradually, slowly, a wee bit more subtle, even though it's obvious. So you could use that on a pad. That's one way. Another way is you could use it on your percussion tracks, which I've got here. I've got a closed tap playing on every 16th note here. I've created movement on this already by the velocities, altering the velocities of each track, each little note. Each hit, and then repeated this over and over. This creates a movement in itself. I've got I think I've got a swing on it as well. Maybe not. A wee bit of swing on it to get a wee bit of movement. And you want, what I like to have is to have this side chain as well, just to give it more movement when the kick comes in. You don't want the hats to be playing. You want the kick to shine through with all its punch and high transients if you've got a click in that. So you sidechain this the same way. but you set your parameters up a little different, and you could use different compressors, but I'll show you here just with this trigger on. As you can see here, that's your compressor taking away the volume of your channel here, dependent on how your signals are sent, which is 4 to the floor. You can almost hear the kick, even though it's not on. So that creates movement, which sounds quite nice. I've got quite a fast attack and release, just because you want this initial pumping. I've got more of a threshold decrease in dB, just because I wanted it to be a bit more drastic. Give that more of a dramatic effect that's coming in and out quickly. Now the hats sound linear. They don't sound like they're moving with the kick, like they're coming in when the kick's out and going out when the kick's coming in, which sounds quite good. You can also use different types of compressors, and these have all different characters on how they interact with your sidechaining. I usually switch between Platinum Digital, Studio FET and Vintage Opto. Give them a try and see what you think. The settings will stay the same as you change compressor. They will all stay the same. So the knee option here, it gets rid of that. I usually use the FET on like off basses or a bass, just so on a bass you want it to be really quick. Really quick attack and really quick release. I'll go over why in a minute. But even though the values are the same, it'll sound different, and you'll need to adjust your values to suit. So this will probably sound a wee bit too sidechained now. That actually sounds pretty good. Yeah, that actually makes it sound better. Maybe a bit too much. I don't know which one I like better, actually. I'll keep it like that just now. I like that. It does pull the volume up with the hats a wee bit too much. Yeah. Right, okay, so you could use it on your percussion like that. I've got it on another bit of percussion, is my shaker. Only difference is here, I've got it on 16ths again, but I've got to remove some notes. The reason why I removed them, like in these regions, is to allow space for the music for like my delays and reverb to come into play. Because your sidechain will still be active on the reverb and delays you've got, which gives a cool effect. It'll still have that pumping effect on whatever delay you have on, So it's like almost like a pumping effect of the room. You want to have the release on this like kind of higher, so you're it's more obvious, like the pad effect. I've probably got it well. It's kind of swooshing in and out, You can use it in your percussion. You could use it on pads, vocals in the same manner as using delays and reverbs. I've got it on this vocal. I've got a tape delay in this time. I use this on my tracks when I'm transitioning from like a breakdown or a drop. As the crash comes in, I usually put a tape delay and have a compressor side chaining with the kicks. See, you could hear the volume getting sucked away every time the signal's played, and it gives it like a movement effect. That's why we needed to set our bus 1 sidechain track to no output. So whenever you could have the trigger MIDI like in your track, but the kick doesn't necessarily need to be playing for it to be ducking, if you know what I mean. So it's like a ghost kick. So you can have this trigger on that gives you the flexibility to have the trigger on as like a pumping effect without the kick, to give it that movement, you know, with your pads and the vocal. You can still hear the pumping, you know. Whereas if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have that movement. Like, sometimes you wouldn't want the movement, but if you were just transitioning to put in a new instrument, then you could put your trigger track in and it would start the movement and a wee bit of percussion happening, closed hats, open hats. So hopefully you see what I mean by that. I've got another vocal, I've just taken it from Apple Loop here, a Melody 09. I've just put a tape delay on. I think it's 1/4, and 1/2. I think this just adds a wee bit of variance to the delays, but the same side chains getting sucked away. So it gives it, like, because they've got reverb on them as well, it gives it like a sense of space, you know. So like they're far away, and you could hear everything's getting like sucked away, and pressures, and you hear the pressure in your ears, you know. And music's about what you don't hear rather than like what you do hear, if that makes sense. And last but not least, the main reason why you use a sidechain trigger is on basses, is because basses usually are low frequency instrument, and the low frequency brings energy to a track. That's why the bass comes in on the drop, you know. But the problem with that is the kick also is full of low energy. Apart from sidechaining, which is a good method to use when you're wanting to remove volume from your bass, or allowing your kick to come through for your bass to duck out of the way of your kick. That is the main reason, because both of them play at low frequencies. You know, like for example, I've got my kick here at 62 hertz. I've peaked it here because that's where the most of the energy is, as you can see by this little spike I've got on the analyzer. What I've also done is on my bass EQ, I've removed 62 hertz quite narrowly here. That's basically just so both the elements don't collide with each other in terms of frequency. So that's the first thing I always do. Then I put on a compressor to the bass, which just gives it that much more of a movement, the same way as it did in the phaser, you know. So I'll let you hear that. Hear it without it. It sounds so linear, you know, like there's no movement in that at all. It doesn't feel energetic. Now, between the delays, the reverbs on the shaker and the vocals, it kind of adds the spatial awareness, and the bass is kind of mean because it's getting sucked away at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense. I've also got it on an off bass playing as well with the bass. The reason, like, the kick plays on the downbeat and offbeat, and off bass plays on the third note 16th here. So you'd imagine you wouldn't need a sidechain because the kick's not playing at this time, and you're right. But it adds character to the off bass. You can just imagine like the signal of the off bass as it plays, like a square wave, comes in with the attack, like high, you know, off bass. Right, so it's off on. But you can imagine if you got it sidechained, the compressor's still reacting to the volume that's getting left behind after the off bass is played or the kick has been introduced. So it's more like a ramping effect now when it comes to your off bass. You know, like it's ramping up quickly and then it's coming down quickly. So it's adding character, and you'll hear what I mean. It is very subtle, but you put it on with a kick, it makes it more obvious. So here we go. Yeah, now it sounds a bit more linear. Yeah, no, it's not as cool. And as you can hear, the kicks, like the kicks are really clear. Like the transient of the kick, you can hear it, you know, and the weight of the kicks there as well. Pardon me, because I've got it happening on most of my tracks, but I've got the different values set depending on the feel I want to give off from the compressor and the sidechain. In terms of the roller coaster type of way I'm imagining it. But just whatever best suits you guys. You could also use your like, you don't have to have it forward to the floor. You know, if you wanted like to chop up vocals, you could have it stuttering to whatever rhythm you think would be cool. You know, you could have it your compressor acting really quickly, and then that would be taking out the volume at these certain points of a vocal, if you could imagine that. But I use it a lot on reverse reverbs, or a crash with a tape delay on it for a transition type thing. So hopefully I've helped you guys with your sidechaining, ducking. If there's any questions you want to ask or something I've not explained fully, then give me a shout on the comments. If I've helped you, like and subscribe, and there'll be more videos hopefully explaining more things, more tutorials and techniques when it comes to producing music. Cheers, see you later.